Peace and blessings. Namaste. To all the light workers and warriors all over the globe. Today I want to talk to you about the clairs. I'm going to speak a little bit about my own journey, how I figured out what clairs I was, and how I'm constantly using them, and how I'm continually trying to develop them, and how sometimes they can throw you off, right? Okay, so first, let's get some basics out the way, okay? We were going through ascension symptoms. Many people all over the world started experiencing certain ascension symptoms. You know, they were coming from the Schumann resonance. They were also coming from the sun DNA activation codes that was either awakening dormant DNAs, unlocking some of your higher potentials, or crystallining your DNA. All of this stuff, this amazing journey that we all found ourselves embarking on, and nobody asked our permission, right? It just happened. Right. So when you look up ascension symptoms, you're going to get a broad details from different counts all around the world. A lot of them are very common, you'll get a lot of fatigue or toothaches or aches here, or soreness, stiffness, lethargic behavior, things of that nature, right? Mine was a little bit different. Mine was a lot different. As a matter of fact, when I was young, I was already clairvoyant, right? So we went through this whole thing and was like, okay, I was born with my third eye open. So my great grandmother said, oh my God, she had the veil. They had to cut off the veil. That's a sign of the seer. My great grandmother was part Native American. And she had little practices and things like that, like how she swept the steps to mean this or that. But she looked at me and she said, oh my God, she's going to be a seer. And not only is she a seer, but she's going to be mean. Mean. And you know what? I did enter into this realm pretty angry. Oh boy, was I angry. I don't know if I was angry because I didn't want to be here again, or, what was going on. But I came in here pretty angry at a lot of things. And, but clairvoyance was one of the gifts that I had when I was young. And I used to see beings in robes all the time, standing in the kitchen, standing upstairs, watching over me when I pray. And I would tell my grandmother, hey, there's a being standing right there. There's a man there and he's in a purple robe and he's smiling at me. And my grandmother would say things like, yeah, okay. And she would put my head under the covers and just say, go to sleep. We're not going through this. I was able to tell her about the birth of my little sister, how I saw little babies, and then of course, with all families, it was like, okay, well, can you predict lottery numbers? Of course not. Of course not. That's not how this works, right? That's not how this works. But, that was one of the gifts that I had when I was young. But there was a plus and a minus to that. The plus was, yes, I was able to see things before it happened. I understood and knew what deja vu was very young, and I was able to travel to different realms or dimensions that I thought that I was dreaming, and I could lucid dream. If I got scared, I always manifested swords, right? I used to have swords. I'm 10 years old, and I'm fighting dark energy with swords that I learned how to manifest. So my lucid dreams was off the chain. Like they look like they came from a comic book or something. I was badass, right? So I fought a lot when I was young. But okay, now that was just one of the gifts that I had. The second one kind of came around more in my teenage years, okay? And that was what we would call claircognizant. I just had a divine knowing. Of course, I grew up in church, right? And my Aunt Juanita used to tell a story that when I was really young, and I was in church and people would shout and carrying on, and I was about, 7 years old, and I was saying, y'all don't have the Holy Spirit. I got the Holy Spirit, and everybody thought that I was so cute. I didn't know what the Holy Spirit was. I knew I had something, And I grew up in church, and then of course I became ordained, and I was even a preacher, with the AME church for a while. But I knew that that's really where I didn't want to be, because I liked people. You know, um, I liked the broken. I liked being around people who were hurting or who were suffering or who was dealing with everyday life. You know what I mean? And I could not stand a hypocrite. Like, that was the biggest pet peeve of mine. Couldn't stand a hypocrite. Claircognizant came when I would just have divine knowing. We would go through Bible classes and stuff like that, and Sunday school, and they would go through all types of scriptures, and they would have these books where they would explain to you what these scriptures meant, and I would challenge it, and I'm saying, that's not what that means. Well, I'm a little girl, to them, I was a teenager, actually, but to them, they was like, there's no way she knows what this means. And how do you know that? I just knew. Okay. I just knew that that's not what that meant, or it didn't make sense. And I was the one that was always raising my hand going, but, why would God do that? That doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, that came with a lot of reprimanding, and eventually I knew that my place wasn't in the churches anymore, because I had way more questions than I had answers, and that kind of took me on my own journey, right? And plus, I was always more universal. My pastor had said, you're not going to stay here. You're not going to stay in church. You're not going to be a preacher. And I'm like, well, why aren't I? I want my own church, and he's like, because you have a theologian mind. You have a theologian mind. You like the science of God. And you know what? That stuck with me for a very long time, because he was right. I went on a quest to find God. I went on a quest to find the source. It took me all over, from ancient Sumer to Egypt to Greek to, it took me all over, okay? And was it really necessary? Maybe not. Maybe not, because when you really think about it now, it's real easy to tap into the source. It's all about your vibration, right? We lead with our heart. Very simple, simple, simple. Because when you lead with your heart, all the laws hang underneath them, right? You're not going to murder. You're not going to lie on people. You don't want to see people hurt. So it became very simple. But I needed to know. I just needed to know. I needed to know from the time it all started to now. And I had to self-realize during this time. So Claircognizance came during that time, when I was challenging the pastors, when I was challenging the religious teachers, when I would sit on TV and listen to these televangelists and go, oh my God, they are taking people for their monies. And I was getting angry about that. Then I got angry because of the suppression of the divine feminine. Oh, that was a problem. Oh, that was a problem to me. How dare you? And then I went the Hebrew path, right? And started learning how to translate certain words and etymology, things like that. I've always been a nerd. I've always been a nerd when it came down to religion and religion science and esoteric and gnosis. And I read the Zohar, and, so my mind's very expansive and broad. So I also understand this. And this is why I'm very careful about who I teach, what I teach, and making myself known, okay? Because some of it is divine knowing, it's claircognizant, and some of it, I'm just tapping into information that resonates with me. Now, when the claircognizant came, the clairvoyant took a step back. Why? Because at some point it started becoming scary. And because I wasn't trained enough to know how to deal with spiritual battles as a young child, I prayed it away. And I remember getting on my knees and saying, please take my sight from me. Please take my sight from me. I'm scared. Please take my sight from me. And it was taken. It was granted. But Clairaudience came. This is difficult to talk about. Clairaudience came a little bit later, mainly when I was dealing with the church, and I would be jarred out of my sleep, and I could hear somebody call my name in a different language. It wasn't my name, but it was my name, and I could wake up. I could hear the angels and how they communicate with me. It wasn't just the numbers, We all like to talk about the number sequences, right? 1111. I got triple fives. I got triple threes. I was getting that too. That's called synchronicity, but I never knew what that meant. I could go online and look it up, but I never knew what it meant. But I realized that it was the same angels that was around me when I was young that was still around when I was an adult. Being protective. Because they knew that this time was coming. And they knew that when this time came, I was going to activate and awaken. And they also knew that they had a charge that I needed to be protected. Just like many of you. Just like many of you. You all have similar stories, I am so sure, right? Clairaudience came. And the angels developed very unique ways of communicating with me. I always liked 80s music, right? I like certain songs. Certain angels would play certain songs when they wanted to get my attention, and I'm like, oh, okay, I know who that is. What did I do now, or what didn't I do now? I've been called a little hard-headed, right? It is what it is. I don't know if that part of my nature is ever going to change. But around 2019 was when it really got interesting. Around 2019 is when I started going through some very serious ascension symptoms, some very serious activations. And this was in the form of energy. And it wasn't simple energy like, oh, I got a feeling. No, these were surges of electricity that was going through my body to the point where I felt like I would seize sometimes. I would seize in my sleep. I will share with you a little later on what I thought was happening to me because, and I ended up contacting a shaman because I thought I was shape-shifting, and I wasn't too far off, but I did contact the shaman, like, oh my God, I'm shifting in here, and I'm having these vivid dreams. I'm in these different realms. I don't look like me, though. I'm a giant. I don't look like me. I can't see myself, In my form, I took on various forms. And then I heard other people starting to talk about being multidimensional, or being infinite energy. And I said, okay, this is making sense to me because, of course, I'm through my Bibles. I'm trying to do this research. I go through the Emerald Tablets. I go through the Kabbalion. And I'm like, okay, I need some information here. Like, what is happening to me? And I'm finding clues with Big Brother Tahuti and a lot of his teachings. And I'm going, okay, there's different dimensions. Maybe I'm not crazy after all, right? But after that initial activation, I became clairsentient. And out of all of the clairs, clairsentient has been the roughest for me. And if you don't quite know what clairsentience is when you have the ability to feel and discern energy. I'm not talking the same thing as like having a good vibe or a bad vibe or a hunch. I'm talking about literally feeling energies and not being able to explain it. And when it first happened to me, after I had the electrical charges, there were certain places that I was just avoiding to go because if I walked in there, I could literally feel all around my shoulders. Sometimes it would feel like I was being choked. Okay, I could feel something in my throat. Sometimes nauseated, like if it was a bad energy or heavy energy, I would feel it in the pit of my stomach. It would make my stomach feel nauseated, like I would have to throw up. I'm putting this out there for any of you who might be experiencing any of this and is kind of confused as what it may signify. Good energy when they're communicating with me, like a lot of angelic beings, when they're communicating with me, I feel it here, my heart chakra, right? It feels almost like a burning, like a fire. I would feel a fire here. And then I would have to close my eyes and go, oh, it's you, right? When I'm dealing with the divine, the pressure is here. And I know it's awkward because many people associate with the third eye as being here, but I feel it here. I will feel the pressure here while I am getting the communication, right? No, it's nothing medical. We've already went down that route. It just simply is what it is. And clairsentient is difficult. It is difficult. I'll be at my place of work and then I'll feel something around my chest or around my throat. And because I have surrounded myself with others like me, I can call them and say, oh my God, I need for you to tell me what's going on. There's somebody here. There's somebody here. And if I close my eyes, I might be able to see a glimpse of it, right? Some beings are very tall. But so am I, so I don't fear that. Clairsentience will cause you anxiety if you haven't learned how to actually identify with it. I'm learning that. I still have not perfected this part of my walk, this part of my journey. I haven't perfected it because everything just was happening so fast, It was almost as if I was being rushed to catch up, so everything with me happened fast and there was no preparation for it. When clairsentience hit, there was no preparation for it. It was just what I feel, why I feel it, and what the heck is going on here. Am I feeling it in my root chakra? What kind of energy? What vibration is that? Is that lower D? Is that 2D? Is that 3D? You're just learning to use my body as a measuring tool to figure out what energies are in my presence or around me, or even communicating with me. To get better with dealing with these types of energies, I had to really learn how to meditate. And I also had to learn how to release the energies. Because my body would harness it. I would take it with me, I started noticing that I would be followed. I didn't know that so much negativity is attracted to light like that. And it's not just me, my intimate family, who I trust, we all deal with this. And we're on the phone with each other going, okay, what the heck was that? Did you feel that? Yeah, I felt that. Did you see this? Yeah, I saw that. So I am blessed in this journey right now to have others that actually understand, because they're operating in the clairs too. And they're vibrating on higher frequencies, and we protect each other. We have to, because it's real out here. And if you don't have anybody that you can talk to, that you can say, listen, this is what's going on with my body. What does this mean? Like, why is this vibrating? Why does my throat feel pressure? Why does the back of my head feel pressure? If you don't have people that you can talk to like that, you're going to feel really, really lost. And not only lost, but you're going to feel crazy. I accepted that I wasn't crazy when I realized that there was others like me. Now, they might not be exactly like me, because everybody's journey is pretty unique. Mine has been pretty intense. And also pretty unpredictable. My prayer changed. My meditation changed. My personality stayed the same. I'm still jovial. Okay, I'm still Silly Belle. I'm still a nerd. You know, I'm still these things. I still like to have a lot of fun. But my character changed. What I'm going to accept, what I'm not going to accept, and how I see the world. I stopped seeing people differently from myself. Sometimes I started seeing them as a reflection. When people displayed bad or negative behavior, sometimes I'm able to see the trauma behind it. So I don't quickly judge or dismiss them. I just talk to them, you know, laugh with them, and then I'm discerning. Stare, you know, I stare at them. I stare into their souls. I want to know what's going on with you, and I want to know how I can help you. Then I realized everybody can't help. I've always been very compassionate, but people didn't know it because I had a shell. And that shell I created around myself as a protective mechanism. Because when I was young, it was always fight or flight, right? And now I'm learning I have absolutely nothing to fear. I know I'm divinely protected. And I know I'm strong. I know I'm powerful. And I didn't go to school for it. And I didn't study on how to do this and how to do that. I just knew. And it's all right. Mudras have become my friend. Some of them I know. Some of them I create. And it's a way for me to release myself from these energies and try to really tap into my clairs. Clairvoyance, Claircognizant, Clairaudience, Clairsentience. Maybe you have all four of them. Maybe you have one or two of them. Maybe you're seeking ways to develop it. If I could give you any of them, I would give you the Clairsentience because that's the nightmare, but it also saved my tail. That's all I have to say. Don't be afraid of your power. Don't be afraid if you start changing, okay? If these abilities start to ignite in you, spend time in meditation. Ask the right questions. Connect with people like yourself. Figure out how they got through it. Figure out various methods and ways to use it. And don't be ashamed and don't hide. The time of hiding is over. We didn't come here to be in fear. We came in here to be empowered. So, no more hiding. Come out, light warriors. I am Sophie. I love you all. Bye.